small islands. That means finite land space. That means that if we are rational and prudent people, we understand that every square inch of our territory is valuable to us. So therefore, we should not begin by fooling ourselves that we have landfills. We do not. We have dumps that are ruining acre upon acre of our land. We started out with dumps in both towns. As we grew, actually, that was available, and it has grown to where it's come now.
My name is Edwin Ortiz. They call me Eddie. I'm the proprietor of Ortiz Landscaping and at the Flamboyant Restaurant. Our community is next to Jovenza and Diageo rum factory right here in the state, Machuchal. One time they mentioned that if we don't close the Anguilla landfill, they will have to close the airport.
The Anguilla landfill has been there for many years. The best I can recall is that this probably started it somewhere in the 40s, probably when they stopped dumping garbage in Estate Williams, and from there they moved on and went to Anguilla. It was some swampland there, and they used that to fill some of the swampland, and that's how it came into existence, because they had to close down the one in Williams, and before the one in Williams there was the one right next to the ballpark in Frederickstead that got filled up and they turned it into a beach.
I don't consider it a landfill. I consider it more of a dumping grounds, because for many years there was no regulations. I mean, we're talking about everything and anything was dumped there, to the point that you can compare that ground, that area, to a nuclear wasteland. Because think about it, years and years of dumping trash with no regulations. Imagine all those chemicals that saturate the ground. The most important thing about closing it is, one, to protect the environment, two, the proximity of the dump to the airport. Because at one point or the other, it's not if, it's when. A flock of birds can come and cause an accident. We had numerous dump fires, not landfill fires, but dump fires, which have caused respiratory illnesses to many people in our community.
It's important that we close the landfills at both Anguilla and Bavoni, because the Waste Management Authority is under court order from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to do so. The court orders applying to Anguilla landfill require an immediate closure, like this year. In fact, that's already been extended several years. The closure of the Bavoni landfill will be within the next 3 years. It also is a hazard for the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, because it poses a risk to flights coming in and out of St. Croix.
Waste management officials expect to break ground on a $7.5 million transfer station next week, which will allow trash to be bundled in bales and sloped along St. Croix's landfill. It's another step in the long-anticipated closure of Anguilla landfill, which the Federal Aviation Administration says is too close to the Henry E. Rolson Airport, as birds pose a threat to nearby planes.
So it's very important that we do this, because the closure of the landfill is what we want to achieve, so that we no longer have any potential threats to the nearby airport operations, which would jeopardize the funding that's available for the Port Authority.
Their plans hinge on the proposed Alpine waste-to-energy plant. The alternative, says WMA Director May Adams Cornwall, is sending waste off-island.
If we're unable to put the waste-to-energy plant in place in the next 2 to 3 years, and we're finished with the baling, the construction of the final closure of the landfill, there'll be no place to take the bales. Once we've closed the landfill, gotten approval and sign off from all the regulatory agencies that it is finally closed and accepted, we're going to need to have some place to take baled and wrapped waste. It's our intention that the waste-to-energy plant will be ready, and you'll be able to drive it over there. But if that is not ready, then the only place we can probably take it to will be the Bavoni landfill on St. Thomas.
That's the last resort for waste management. Officials say Bavoni's landfill days are numbered and will reach a capacity between 3 to 5 years.
Alpine Energy Group was founded in 2005 by 4 individuals, all of us with extensive experience in the in the power industry. We created the company really to see smaller projects that would help communities, not only with power problems, but with other problems, waste problems, and other benefits that could help a community on the power side. And with the shift in the environment to renewable projects, we thought that our company of helping them not only with their power prices, but with creating jobs and finding ways to use waste that ordinarily are disposed of or not taken care of properly, and be able to convert that into power and into something useful. We knew, based on research we had done here, that there was not only a large problem with power prices, but also a large problem with waste disposal, and that the EPA had been working with the USVI for several years to try to close its landfills, and what we saw there was a perfect opportunity really to come in and try to help with both equations, with both the power and the waste side. And so we put in our proposal in the summer of 2008 to build one waste-to-energy facility either in St. Croix or St. Thomas at WAPA's choice.
One of the biggest issues that we had when this proposal came to us, to the Senate, was the use of petcoke. They were going to use petcoke as fuel. This didn't fall well on the people of the Virgin Islands, and especially among many of the senators, due to the fact that we were concerned about the environment, the environmental impact. So that's why the proposal actually died.
Alpine Energy over the last 2 years has worked very closely and has listened to the community. They started off with a proposal that included the combustion of petroleum coke. St. Croix Environmental Association commented on their permit. They withdrew their application for the coastal zone management permit and developed Plan C, which expressly eliminates petroleum coke.
The electric LEAC residential will go from 19 cents per kilowatt hour to 25.47 cents per kilowatt hour, which means about a $30.99 increase or a $31 increase in the overall monthly billing for the average residential customer using 500 kilowatts a month. That translates to about an additional $1 a day.
The original proposal was actually for waste energy only, but after speaking with WAPA in more detail about the issues in the community with the power pricing, and this was summer of 2008 when the price of oil was at $140 a barrel, and WAPA was doing everything it could to try to find a way to lower power prices for the territory. And the amount of waste that's here can only generate 16 to 20 megawatts of power. WAPA wanted to have more than that so that it could take care of a larger problem, the power price problem, and try to reduce it even further. And so they asked us if we consider building 2 projects instead of 1, and then use petroleum coke as the additional fuel. It's not something that Alpine would ordinarily entertain, and it's not something that we built our company to do. We were going after strictly renewable projects. Now, when the community came back and said that it did not want petroleum coke, we wanted to work with the community. We wanted to be good corporate citizens and be a company that people like and want in their community, rather than somebody that they feel is coming in and trying to push something on them that they don't necessarily want.
Yo te digo a ti que aquí ya nos afecta mucho, especialmente la área baja de Machuchal, donde yo vivo al lado del highway, y Javi, tras que tienen el basurero en Anguila, en la planta de desperdicio, y eso verdaderamente cuando se riegue y el viento cambia, mi hermano, no hay quien duerma con la peste esa. Y quieren culpar muchas veces a HES, pero no es HES ni es Diallo, es Anguilla Landfill y las aguas negras, que cada vez que ese viento cambia, mija, aquí es tremendo. Y sería bien beneficioso que cerraran, no Anguilla Landfill, movieran ese también de las aguas negras esas, movieran eso de ahí, porque nos está afectando mucho a la comunidad de nosotros. Y si Alpine viene y elimina Anguilla, gloria a Dios, bienvenido.
I see 2 benefits. One is solution to our waste problem. The waste-to-energy plant will receive an estimated 80% of the general waste coming into VI Waste Management Authority, and will dispose of it. It will divert it from going into a landfill. And right now, we've got very limited land area in the Virgin Islands, and we really don't have other space for landfills, and there's not very many people that would want a new landfill in their backyard. Typically, in a plant of this nature, 50% of the cost of construction of that plant is going to go into the best available control technology to make certain that the air quality coming out of the other end is clean. So only about half of the cost of the plant is actually the energy generating piece of that part of that plant. The other half is environmental control technology that's put on the backside. I'm satisfied that we're going in the right direction, and that it's a net environmental plus for us, both from an air quality standpoint as well as from a major standpoint, and that being solution to our solid waste problem.
Garbage trucks will come into our building, an enclosed building, and within those walls, so there's no dust or odor issues. This waste is converted into what looks like a little wood pellet, a very safe, clean fuel that's sterilized and is odorless, and then it's introduced into the power generation side, and then the back-end equipment on that removes as much emissions as possible, and what you'll see coming out of a stack is nothing. I understand when people think of waste energy, that's probably the first thing that enters their mind, is that it might be this mass burn facility that's very dirty. That's the way it might have worked back in the 50s and 60s, but EPA has changed the laws so much and the technology has changed so much that today it's done cleanly, where the only thing that folks would see from looking at the facility from across the street would be garbage trucks coming in full inside a closed building, exiting a closed building empty, and a power generation facility running with nothing coming out of the stack.
Waste-to-energy plants, there are about 85 or 88 operating in the United States today. And so the amount of pollution that would be emitted from an Alpine plant would be substantially less per megawatt of hour or per kilowatt of hour generated than the combustion using older technology at WAPA, for example. We've got some technology at WAPA that was built before the Clean Air Act was put into place. So in 1967, 1971, a couple of the boilers that we see at Richmond, and also a couple of the boilers at Crum on St. Thomas, those guys are completely unregulated because they were actually built and installed prior to the Clean Air Act itself. Their newer turbines at WAPA are regulated by US EPA, but the regulations are older. And so the best available control technology for today is what will be imposed on Alpine. So from that standpoint, the Alpine energy plant will generate about 1/16 the amount of air pollution that's regulated, that's reported, that's monitored and reported coming from the Richmond power plant on St. Croix. So the Richmond power plant is emitting 16 times more than the amount of energy, the amount of pollutants that are going to come from the Alpine, and that's only the regulated. That's not including those pollutants that are coming from WAPA's boilers 10 and 11 on St. Croix.
One of the entities that's going to be supervising this project from beginning to end is the EPA. The Environmental Protection Agency is going to overlook every single aspect of this project, and that's very important because without the EPA, then that means that anybody can do anything that they want. But no, the EPA is going to be there. They're going to ensure that all the steps are taken correctly. They're going to ensure that no emission that is harmful to the people of the Virgin Islands will ever be produced. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. With this entity, and when I say entity, I'm talking about EPA overlooking this project, we know that once it's completed and once it starts working, it will be safe.
In the USVI, we generate about 12 pounds of waste per day per person, as opposed to 4.5 pounds per day per person in the United States on average. So our generation of waste in the Virgin Islands is 2.5 to 3 times greater than the same in the United States.
Pues mi opinión es bienvenido, que venga compañías para que ayuden al pueblo, porque lo importante es tener alternativas, no solamente depender de una fuente, sino podemos tener plan A, plan B, plan C, y la factura mensual pues eventualmente baja y todo el mundo pues va a estar más contento.